Hey gang, Stephen Marshall, KYLandlordlaw.com, back at you with another update on this Section 8 stuff. So, like many of you, a couple days ago I attended the LFUCG Social Services and Public Safety Committee meeting and listened to the presentation by the LFUCG Housing Commissioner Charlie Lanner proposing to make it illegal for housing providers to refuse to accept Section 8 vouchers in certain situations. After the presentation, the committee members asked questions to Mr. Lanner and to Austin Sims and other members of the Lexington Housing Authority, which oversees Lexington's Section 8 program. And I want to give you just a rundown about the presentation, about what the committee heard about the Section 8 program in Lexington and the impact of the proposal. So these are not exact quotes, but they're descriptions of what was of the information given to the committee. So they were told that no more than 4% of housing providers in Lexington accept Section 8. They believe that the number is less than 4%, but it's no more than 4%. Most of those who accept Section 8 vouchers are on the north end of town. And so the idea is that passing this ordinance would open up new neighborhoods to the voucher holders, better schools, better transportation, that type of thing. The potential ordinance would do little more than prevent housing providers from advertising no Section 8 accepted. That's what was told to the committee. And then housing providers will not have to lower rents to accommodate voucher holders, and so properties with rents beyond the voucher limits will not be impacted. I do believe that's 100% true, and that's what was told to the committee. A couple of legal opinions that were offered in the presentation. First, housing providers would not be required to repair items from a failed inspection if they would also not make those repairs for non-voucher holders. And then second, housing providers could reject voucher holders if the inspection and approval process takes too long. Now, there was no analysis of what it means to take too long, but that's what was presented to the committee. The presentation also had a myth-busting section. The Section 8 program does not require housing providers to hold units vacant for unreasonable amounts of time. That was one of the statements made to the committee. And the Housing Authority made several reports about the program. First, they said that housing providers are only required to complete two forms, a direct deposit form and a W-9, and once those are completed, they'll be set up pretty quickly in the Housing Authority system. They also stated that requests for tenant approval are processed by the next business day, no later than the next business day after they're submitted. They said that inspections, remember my last video talked about this inspection process that has to occur. They said that happens, or they're scheduled within 3 business days. And then finally, they stated that contracts between the Housing Authority and the housing provider are entered into within 2 business days after the unit passes inspection. So ultimately, the presentation to the committee is that the Section 8 program is a smooth, expedited system in which tenants are seamlessly transitioned into new housing, and housing providers receive quick approval and guaranteed money with very little inconvenience. It was what I'd call the social media depiction, or the social media version of the Section 8 program. You know, there's that saying that I hope your life is as good as you make it look on Facebook. Well, I wish the Section 8 program was as good as they made it sound to the committee. And I wish the proposal in front of the committee was as benign as they made it sound to the committee. But friends, I don't believe that's the case. And here's what I've said since the beginning. If Section 8 vouchers function like cash, then I would encourage everyone to support this ordinance. But that's simply not the case. The vouchers are tied to this program. I've been representing housing providers for over 15 years. And in that time, the consistent message from my clients is that the Section 8 process is incredibly difficult and frustrating for housing providers. I've already talked about the delays in scheduling inspections units getting failed for trivial reasons, and members of the housing authority being notoriously difficult to work with. And for communicating that, I'm said to be guilty of spreading misinformation. That's a claim that I've heard a number of times since I put out my initial video. Folks, I've had clients tell me that working with Section 8 required them to hire an extra part-time position. I've had clients tell me I've waited up to 2 months for that first inspection to occur. I've had clients tell me that they had their unit fail simply over the location of the house number on the unit. Now, could these be isolated incidents? That is certainly possible, but I don't think so. Because if they were isolated incidents, housing providers would flock to the guaranteed money offered by the Section 8 program. There's this fantastic scene in the movie The Lincoln Lawyer, where the lawyer, played by Matthew McConaughey, doesn't allow his client's trial to move forward, telling the judge that instead they need to locate an indispensable witness, Mr. Green. Translation, he wasn't going to try the case until he got paid, until he had the green. Well, folks, housing providers are business people. That is a fact that cannot be forgotten here. They are investors. They have put up their money, their assets, and their time, and their goal is to make money, to get a return on that investment. In other words, their primary concern is Mr. Green. And that's true from the largest apartment community that is but one link in a huge national or regional portfolio, and it's true of the mom and pop operation that has one rental property that they depend on for their retirement income. And because that's true, you can be sure that if the Section 8 program operated smoothly and without delay, they would not have trouble finding housing providers ready to participate. And what's more, you wouldn't have 70% of former participants refusing to go back to the program. Now, the Housing Authority has been offering incentives to get housing providers to participate in the program. And I think that's a phenomenal idea that should continue to be built on. Let the Section 8 program rise or fall in the open market. If it's not thriving such that housing providers want to participate, the first step of our Urban County Council should be to figure out the reason for that. Why is it that housing providers don't want to participate in this program that we're being told is so wonderful? Because here's the concern. The Housing Authority has had and continues to have every incentive to make the Section 8 program as attractive as possible to housing providers. But if that program becomes mandatory, then that incentive to make it attractive goes away. What's the program going to look like then? Housing providers don't want to find out. Now, there is some talk by those connected to the proposal that it's going to have a very minimal impact on housing providers because they can simply move on to other applicants if the Section 8 process takes too long, or if they don't want to make repairs required by the program. Now, that would be fantastic if that's true. But the fact is that those are legal conclusions, and no one knows whether those conclusions are accurate at this point. Ultimately, those questions will be answered by the Lexington Human Rights Commission, then by a Fayette Circuit Court judge, then by the Kentucky Court of Appeals, and then possibly by the Kentucky Supreme Court. And no one wants to be the test case on those issues. Housing providers at this point are simply being told, don't worry about those things. And that is simply not a sufficient answer. And that's the flip side of what was told to the committee. If the impact of this ordinance is so minor on housing providers and can be so easily avoided, why should we believe that it will have any impact on getting more tenants housed? Beyond that, since housing providers are not required to lower their rents to meet voucher levels, how will new neighborhoods and opportunities be opened up to tenants? Ultimately, this is the social media depiction of the Section 8 program, and it doesn't seem to correspond to the reality on the ground. And it certainly doesn't jibe with the stories I've been told consistently for the last 15 years. But there are two very good things to report. First, the committee and presumably the entire council are engaged on this issue. They are listening. They are paying attention. They are asking questions. They know it matters to you. And so the second thing that I can report is that they have scheduled this matter for public comment. So mark your calendars. Tuesday, November 14th, 6 o'clock p.m., the committee will hear public comment on this issue. And that's your chance. That's your chance to show up and tell the committee about your experiences with the Section 8 program. Now, you can be sure that numerous tenant advocates are going to do the same thing. And that's the beauty of our system. It is in your hands. Here's what people need to know. I don't own rental property. I don't truly have a dog in this fight. And in fact, to be perfectly honest, my business will only grow and increase if this proposal becomes law. Because my clients and other housing providers are going to need to be educated on the ins and outs and ramifications of it, and they're going to need representation as a result of it. So this ultimately is not my fight, it's your fight. But I see it as bad for housing providers, and that's why I've sounded the alarm. People think I'm a bad person for doing that, so be it. I'll never be ashamed to tell the truth. If I'm wrong about what's true, then I'll say that as well. But on this issue, I don't think I am. So that's enough for today. I hope to see all of you on November 14th at 6 o'clock p.m. in the council chamber at 200 East Main Street. Okay? Between now and then, please continue to reach out to your council member to tell your story and express your concerns. If I can be of help, you know how to reach me. Give me a call, 859-685-0035, or shoot me an email at smarshall@sslaw.com. That is it for today. Have a fantastic week.